What do I find at the Dugans but Mame all conspicuous in a blue traveling dress with her little trunk at the door. It seems that Sister Lottie Bell, who is a typewriter in Terre Haute, is going to be married next Thursday, and Mame is off for a week's visit to be an accomplice at the ceremony. Mame is waiting for a freight wagon that is going to take her to Oklahoma, but I condemns the freight wagon with promptness and scorn, and offers to deliver the goods myself. Ma Dugan sees no reason why not, as Mr. Freighter wants pay for the job. So 30 minutes later Mame and I pull out in my light spring wagon with white canvas cover and head due south. That morning was of a praiseworthy sort. The breeze was lively and smelled excellent of flowers and grass, and little cottontail rabbits entertained themselves with skylarking across the road. My 2 Kentucky bays went for the horizon until it come sailing in so fast you wanted to dodge it like a clothesline. Mame was full of talk and rattled on like a kid about her old home and her school pranks and the things she liked and the hateful ways of those Johnson girls just across the street, way up in Indiana. Not a word was said about Ed Collier or victuals or some solemn subjects. About noon Mame looks and finds that the lunch she had put up in a basket had been left behind. I could have managed quite a collation, but Mame didn't seem to be grieving over nothing to eat, so I made no lamentations. It was a sore subject with me, and I ruled provender in all its branches out of my conversation. I am minded to touch light on explanations how I came to lose the way. The road was dim and well grown with grass, and there was Mame by my side confiscating my intellects and attention. The excuses are good, or they are not, as they may appear to you. But I lost it, and at dusk that afternoon, when we should have been in Oklahoma City, we were seesawing along the edge of nowhere in some undiscovered river bottom, and the rain was falling in large, wet bunches. Down there in the swamps we saw a little log house on a small knoll of high ground. The bottom grass and the chaparral and the lonesome timber crowded all round it. It seemed to be a melancholy little house, and you felt sorry for it. ŌĆÖTwas that house for the night, the way I reasoned it. I explained to Mame, and she leaves it to me to decide. She doesn't become galvanic and prosecuting, as most women would, but she says it's all right. She knows I didn't mean to do it. We found the house was deserted. It had 2 empty rooms. There was a little shed in the yard where beasts had once been kept. In a loft of it was a lot of old hay. I put my horses in there and gave them some of it, for which they looked at me sorrowful, expecting apologies. The rest of the hay I carried into the house by armfuls, with a view to accommodations. I also brought in the patent kindler and the Brazilians, neither of which are guaranteed against the action of water. Mame and I sat on the wagon seats on the floor, and I lit a lot of the kindler on the hearth, for the night was chilly. If I was any judge, that girl enjoyed it. It was a change for her. It gave her a different point of view. She laughed and talked, and the kindler made a dim light compared to her eyes. I had a pocketful of cigars, and as far as I was concerned there had never been any fall of man. We were at the same old stand in the Garden of Eden. Out there somewhere in the rain and the dark was the river of Zion, and the angel with the flaming sword had not yet put up the Keep Off the Grass sign. I opened up a gross or two of the Brazilians, and made Mame put them on. Rings, brooches, necklaces, eardrops, bracelets, girdles, and lockets. She flashed and sparkled like $1,000,000 princess until she had pink spots in her cheeks and almost cried for a looking glass. When it got late I made a fine bunk on the floor for Mame, with the hay and my lap robes and blankets out of the wagon, and persuaded her to lie down. I sat in the other room, burning tobacco and listening to the pouring rain, and meditating on the many vicissitudes that came to a man during the 70 years or so immediately preceding his funeral. I must have dozed a little while before morning, for my eyes were shut, and when I opened them it was daylight, and there stood Mame with her hair all done up neat and correct, and her eyes bright with admiration of existence. "Gee whiz, Jeff!" she exclaims, "but I'm hungry. I could eat a—" I looked up and caught her eye. Her smile went back in, and she gave me a cold look of suspicion. Then I laughed, and laid down on the floor to laugh easier. It seemed funny to me. By nature and geniality I am a hearty laugher, and I went the limit. When I came to, Mame was sitting with her back to me, all contaminated with dignity. "Don't be angry, Mame," I says, for I couldn't help it. "It's the funny way you've done up your hair. If you could only see it." "You needn't tell stories, sir," said Mame, cool and advised. "My hair is all right. I know what you were laughing about. Why, Jeff, look outside," she winds up, peeping through a chink between the logs. I opened the little wooden window and looked out. The entire river bottom was flooded, and the knob of land on which the house stood was an island in the middle of a rushing stream of yellow water 100 yards wide. And it was still raining hard. All we could do was to stay there till the doves brought in the olive branch. I am bound to admit that conversations and amusements languished during that day. I was aware that Mame was getting a too prolonged one-sided view of things again, but I had no way to change it. Personally, I was wrapped up in the desire to eat. I had hallucinations of hash and visions of ham, and I kept saying to myself all the time, "What'll you have to eat, Jeff? What'll you order now, old man, when the waiter comes?" I picks out to myself all sorts of favourites from the bill of fare, and imagines them coming. I guess it's that way with all hungry men. They can't get their cogitations trained on anything but something to eat. It shows that the little table with the broken legged caster and the imitation Worcester sauce and the napkin covering up the coffee stains is the paramount issue, after all, instead of the question of immortality or peace between nations. I sat there, musing along, arguing with myself quite heated as to how I'd have my steak, with mushrooms or à la Creole. Mame was on the other seat, pensive, her head leaning on her hand. "Let the potatoes come home fried," I states in my mind, "and brown the hash in the pan, with 9 poached eggs on the side." I felt, careful, in my own pockets to see if I could find a peanut or a grain or two of popcorn. Night came on again with the river still rising and the rain still falling. I looked at Mame and I noticed that desperate look on her face that a girl always wears when she passes an ice cream lair. I knew that poor girl was hungry, maybe for the first time in her life. There was that anxious look in her eye that a woman has only when she has missed a meal or feels her skirt coming unfastened in the back. It was about 11 o'clock or so on the second night when we sat, gloomy, in our shipwrecked cabin. I kept jerking my mind away from the subject of food, but it kept flopping back again before I could fasten it. I thought of everything good to eat I had ever heard of. I went away back to my kidhood and remembered the hot biscuits sopped in sorghum and bacon gravy with partiality and respect. Then I trailed along up the years, pausing at green apples and salt, flapjacks and maple, lye hominy, fried chicken old Virginia style, corn on the cob, spare ribs and sweet potato pie, and wound up with Georgia Brunswick stew, which is the top notch of good things to eat because it comprises 'em all. They say a drowning man sees a panorama of his whole life pass before him. Well, when a man's starving he sees the ghost of every meal he ever ate set out before him, and he invents new dishes that would make the fortune of a chef. If somebody would collect the last words of men who starved to death they'd have to sift 'em mighty fine to discover the sentiment, but they'd compile into a cook book that would sell into the millions. I guess I must have had my conscience pretty well inflicted with culinary meditations, for, without intending to do so, I says, out loud, to the imaginary waiter, "Cut it thick, and have it rare, with the French fried, and 6 sauce scrambled on toast." Mame turned her head quick as a wing. Her eyes were sparkling and she smiled sudden. "Medium for me," she rattles out, "with the juliennes, and 3 straight up. Draw 1 and brown the wheats. Double order to come. Oh, Jeff, wouldn't it be glorious? And then I'd like to have a half fry, and a little chicken curried with rice, and a cut custard with ice cream, and " "Go easy," I interrupts. "Where's the chicken liver pie, and the kidney saute on toast, and the roast lamb, and " "Oh," cuts in Mame, all excited, "with mint sauce, and the turkey salad, and stuffed olives, and raspberry tarts, and " "Keep it going," says I. "Hurry up with the fried squash, and the hot corn pone with sweet milk, and don't forget the apple dumpling with hard sauce, and the crossbar dewberry pie." Yes, for 10 minutes we kept up that kind of restaurant repartee. We ranges up and down and backward and forward over the main trunk lines and the branches of the victuals subject, and Mame leads the game, for she is apprised in the ramifications of grub, and the dishes she nominates aggravates my yearnings. It seems that there is a feeling that Mame will line up friendly again with food. It seems that she looks upon the obnoxious science of eating with less contempt than before. The next morning we find that the flood has subsided. I geared up the bays, and we splashed out through the mud, some precarious, until we found the road again. We were only a few miles wrong, and in 2 hours we were in Oklahoma City. The first thing we saw was a big restaurant sign, and we piled into there in a hurry. Here I finds myself sitting with Mame at table, with knives and forks and plates between us, and she not scornful, but smiling with starvation and sweetness. 'Twas a new restaurant and well stocked. I designated a list of quotations from the bill of fare that made the waiter look out toward the wagon to see how many more might be coming. There we were, and there was the order being served. 'Twas a banquet for a dozen, but we felt like a dozen. I looked across the table at Mame and smiled, for I had recollections. Mame was looking at the table like a boy looks at his first stem winder. Then she looked at me straight in the face, and 2 big tears came in her eyes. The waiter was gone after more grub. "Jeff," she says, soft like, "I've been a foolish girl. I've looked at things from the wrong side. I never felt this way before. Men get hungry every day like this, don't they? They're big and strong, and they do the hard work of the world, and they don't eat just to spite silly waiter girls in restaurants, do they, Jeff? You said once, that is, you asked me, you wanted me to. Well, Jeff, if you still care, I'd be glad and willing to have you always sitting across the table from me. Now give me something to eat, quick, please." So, as I've said, a woman needs to change her point of view now and then. They get tired of the same old sights, the same old dinner table, wash tub, and sewing machine. Give 'em a touch of the various, a little travel and a little rest, a little tomfoolery along with the tragedies of keeping house, a little petting after the blowing up, a little upsetting, and a little jostling around, and everybody in the game will have chips added to their stack by the play. End of Cupid A La Carte by O. Henry.